You are not broken. You are not failing. You are not lost. You are incarcerated. And the most disturbing part? You handed the warden, your own ego, the keys to the cell years ago, and you've been paying rent with your life force ever since. This structure you call your personality, this rigid story of who you believe yourself to be, is not a home. It is a maximum security holding facility for the soul, designed by a version of you that stopped evolving the moment trauma convinced you that safety was superior to freedom. Today, we are going to demolish that building. We will walk through the dark, narrow corridors of your conditioned identity, map the architecture of this false sanctuary, and, using the profound insights of Jung, initiate the painful, terrifying, and absolutely necessary dissolution of the self that is suffocating the self you were meant to become. Welcome. This is not a typical self-help discussion. This is a deep, psychological autopsy of the persona. Carl Jung, the great explorer of the depths, introduced a terrifying paradox into the world of psychology. The light of consciousness is not the summit of human achievement. Wholeness is. And wholeness requires that we descend into the basement of our own minds to confront the shadow, the repressed truths, and the rotting foundations of a life built on shoulds rather than instincts. Jung observed that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But this statement is often misinterpreted as a gentle, poetic suggestion. It is not gentle. It is a violent rupture with everything society has trained you to be. To become who you are, you must first understand that who you think you are is a fabrication, a meticulously constructed survival machine that is calcified into a cage. Consider the moment you are asked, "Who are you?" You reach for a list, a job title, a nationality, a relationship status, a set of political beliefs, a curated collection of past wounds. You proudly present this list as proof of your existence. But Jung would look at that list and see not a biography, but a cage. He called this the persona, the mask worn to meet the expectations of society. The tragedy is not that we wear a mask. We all need a persona to function in the social world, just as an actor needs a costume to step onto the stage. The tragedy is that we forget we are wearing one, and eventually, the mask fuses to the bone. We become a caricature of adaptation, a statue carved by the chisels of external validation, mistaking the rigidity of stone for the security of a sanctuary. Here is the core thesis of this journey. Your current identity is a defense mechanism that has outlived its usefulness. It is a false sanctuary designed by a wounded child to avoid future pain. But when you are 40, that same sanctuary is a tomb. To live authentically, you must trigger the collapse of this structure. But be warned, this is not a gentle renovation. This is not rearranging the furniture of your personality. This is a demolition. And before we can build the fluid, integrated psyche Jung described as the goal of individuation, we must understand the blueprint of the prison, why you are addicted to the bars, and how to finally walk through the open gate into the terrifying wilderness of your own unlimited nature. Part 1. The architecture of your gilded cage. Let us begin by visualizing the structure you inhabit. Imagine a medieval fortress constructed in a time of brutal warfare. High walls of solid granite, a deep moat teeming with dark water, archers patrolling the ramparts day and night. In that historical moment of siege, this fortress was salvation. It kept the invaders out and the vulnerable inhabitants safe. The walls were necessary. The vigilance was life-preserving. But now imagine that the war ended decades ago. The invaders are long dead. The surrounding land has become fertile and peaceful, yet you remain inside. The walls no longer protect you from an external enemy. They block the sunlight that crops need to grow. They prevent you from leaving to cultivate the soil. The moat is stagnant and breeding disease. The food stores are empty. The fortress has quietly, silently become a death trap. Yet you man the battlements every night, shooting arrows at shadows, terrified of a phantom army that is no longer marching. This is the precise function of a calcified identity. It was constructed in a time of psychological warfare, typically in your childhood or adolescence, when the threats of rejection, abandonment, humiliation, or conditional love were absolutely real. Your psyche, brilliant in its survival instincts, built walls. In your formative years, you experienced chaos. Perhaps it was the chaos of conditional love, where you learned you were only valuable if you were the smart one or the caretaker. Perhaps it was the sting of rejection that taught you to shrink your volume, to silence your needs, to make yourself invisible so you could survive a volatile home. Perhaps you learned that expressing anger was punished with isolation, so you constructed the persona of the easygoing, agreeable person. In those moments of acute danger, the psyche ran a brutal but effective calculation. If being myself results in pain, I must invent a self that circumvents the pain. I will amputate the offending parts and present a polished, acceptable substitute. The problem, as Carl Jung identified with such piercing clarity, is that this protective personality becomes a habit, and habits have a way of calcifying into perceived destiny. The boy who survived his father's anger by becoming a perfectionist doesn't just drop the perfectionism when he turns 35. He brings it to his marriage, berating himself and his partner for any sign of flaw, unable to tolerate the vulnerability of imperfection, because his nervous system equates flaw with annihilation. The girl who secured love by playing the helpless victim doesn't just grow autonomous when she turns 40. She unconsciously sabotages her career, because competence would dismantle the identity that her nervous system equates with connection. Her psyche whispers, "If you become powerful, you will be alone. The tribe will exile you." So she remains small, not because she lacks capacity, but because the fortress of smallness is the only home she knows. We are looking at a psychological survival loop that operates below the threshold of conscious awareness. The false sanctuary is built from specific materials. The mortar is fear, the bricks are repeated behaviors, and the bars on the windows are the labels you refuse to let go of. I'm an introvert. I'm not a math person. I'm the responsible one. I have bad luck. I'm just not a creative person. You speak these sentences as if they are immutable laws of physics, as if they were handed down by a divine decree about your nature. But they are simply lines of code written into the operating system of the psyche during a period of duress. They are adaptive strategies that have overstayed their welcome. Jung wrote extensively about this trap. He stated, "The persona is a complicated system of relations between individual consciousness and society, fittingly enough a kind of mask, designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and on the other to conceal the true nature of the individual." The key word here is conceal. The persona is not just a public relations tool, it is a concealment device. It hides the parts of you that were deemed unacceptable, unlovable, or dangerous. And in hiding them, you lose access to them yourself. You forget they exist. The mask becomes the face. In the modern digital age, this architecture has been weaponized in ways Jung could have never fully anticipated, though he certainly sensed the increasing soullessness of mass society. We no longer just internalize the expectations of our family and small community. We internalize the algorithmic gaze, We perform for an invisible audience 24/7, even when the camera is off. We become a brand. We curate a digital avatar of achievement, aesthetic perfection, and political virtue. We build a digital fortress, a profile of filtered moments and carefully worded opinions, and we retreat into it. When you feel a pang of deep, inexplicable emptiness after scrolling a hollow ache that no amount of likes or comments can fill, that is the claustrophobia of the soul, realizing the digital sanctuary is just a gilded, pixelated prison. The persona you present online is often the most rigid, most defended, most lifeless version of you. It cannot breathe. It cannot evolve. It must maintain consistency or risk the social punishment of being called a hypocrite or, worse, irrelevant. Think of the tree that grows in a pot. For the first few years, the pot is a sanctuary, a safe boundary against the harsh open soil, the unpredictable weather, the foraging animals. The pot provides structure, but as the tree grows, the roots begin to circle the base of the container, searching for an exit, finding only a ceramic wall. Eventually, the roots start to strangle themselves. They thicken and twist and choke the life from the tree. The tree does not die because it lacks water or sunlight. It dies because it has outgrown the container that once defined and protected it. Your psyche is the tree. Your current identity, the stories you tell, the roles you play, the limitations you accept, is the pot. At some point, the sanctuary becomes the constrictor. The question is not whether the tree needs a container at all, but whether it has the courage to shatter the pot and sink its roots into the terrifying, unknown, life-giving earth. Part 2. The ego's addiction to familiar suffering. Why don't you just walk out of the open gate? This is the question that baffles the conscious mind and frustrates everyone who loves you. The gate is open. The key is in your hand. The guards have fallen asleep. Why do you keep decorating the cell, hanging new curtains, arranging motivational posters on the stone walls, and painting the rusted bars a fresh coat of gold? The answer lies in a terrifying neurological and psychological paradox. The human organism often prefers a familiar devastation to an unfamiliar paradise. We are not wired for happiness. We are wired for predictability. The nervous system does not ask, "Is this good for me?" It asks, "Is this recognizable? Have I survived this before?" Jung understood this through the lens of the ego complex. The ego is not your enemy. It is not a malevolent parasite. It is a data processing center, an organizing principle of consciousness. Its primary job is not happiness. Its primary job is not fulfillment. Its primary job is coherence and survival. The ego will choose a predictable hell over an unpredictable heaven every single time, because the unknown represents extinction to the primitive, reptilian brain structures that still govern much of our automatic behavior. Let me offer a psychological interpretation of this process that I call the thermal comfort of the cave. Imagine you live in a freezing cave. It's cold, dark, and you can barely grow food. You have constructed an entire life around this scarcity. You know the exact sound the wind makes when it howls through the crevice in the east wall. You know exactly how many steps it takes to reach the back wall in total darkness. Your body has adapted to the frigid temperature. It is miserable, but it is home. It is a known misery. One day, a geological shift occurs. A tunnel collapses, revealing a passage that opens into a lush, sun-drenched valley. There is abundant fruit. There is clean water. There is warmth. But you do not run into it. You scramble to plug the hole with rocks. You seal it shut. Why? Because the warm valley is chaotic and unknown. You don't know the predators there. You don't know the seasons. You don't know if the fruit is poisonous. The unknown warmth feels more existentially dangerous to your nervous system than the known freezing death. That freezing cave is your current suffering. The negative self-talk that narrates your every waking moment. The toxic relationship dynamic you replay with different faces. The dead-end career that numbs your soul but provides a predictable paycheck. The self-imposed isolation that shields you from rejection but also from love. Your neural pathways have been paved by dopamine loops, not of pleasure, but of familiarity. Every time you mentally rehearse the story of why you can't, why you're not ready, why people like us don't succeed, your brain rewards you with a microdose of predictability. See? Your ego whispers, "I knew it." The world makes sense. The model of reality I constructed is holding. This pain is my pain. I know this script intimately. This is the addiction to familiar suffering. We see it in the person who continuously seeks out partners who withhold love, not because they enjoy the sting of rejection, but because the rejection validates the core wound of "I am unworthy." Validation, even of a negative core belief, feels more grounding and stable than the ambiguity of being loved unconditionally for no reason. Unconditional love is terrifying to a wounded ego because it cannot be controlled, it cannot be earned, and it shatters the entire narrative that love must be purchased with performance. We see it in the artist who refuses to finish the painting, the writer who never submits the manuscript, the entrepreneur who self-sabotages just before the breakthrough. The failure is familiar. The success is uncharted territory. The ego despises cognitive dissonance. If you suddenly succeeded, if you suddenly felt sustained joy and peace, the ego would panic. "Who am I?" it screams in silent terror. "If I am not the struggling one? Who am I if I am not the victim of circumstance? Who will I be when this old, comfortable sadness is no longer my identity?" This is why surface-level self-improvement fails so catastrophically for millions of people. The modern wellness industry teaches you to manifest abundance, while the ego is still secretly running the program of lack. You try to renovate the prison with vision boards, positive affirmations, and morning routines. You tape a picture of a Ferrari to the wall of your cell. You repeat, "I am abundant," while your unconscious is still gripping the identity of the impoverished child who learned that money was the root of all evil. These tools are often just the ego's cleverest trick, a sophisticated form of resistance. You are not escaping the false sanctuary. You are hiring an interior decorator to make the dungeon feel more bearable. True work requires not decorating the cell, but detonating the charge that blows the wall open. And that requires a level of psychological courage that cannot be sourced from a motivational quote. It must be sourced from the terrifying recognition that you are in love with the cage. You must admit that you have been nursing at the breast of your own suffering because it has given you an identity, a story, and a perverse sense of safety. Jung spoke of the shadow not as an enemy to be slain, but as a disowned part of the self to be integrated. But the shadow is not just the dark impulses, like rage or lust. The shadow also contains the gold, the disowned brilliance, the disowned power, the disowned freedom that you are too afraid to claim. The ego is equally terrified of this golden shadow, because its emergence would obliterate the familiar suffering identity. To be free is to lose the story of the struggle, and for many, that is a death far more terrifying than the actual suffering itself. Part 3. The high cost of maintaining the persona, maintaining a lie, is the most expensive operation in the universe. Physicists speak of the immense binding energy required to hold atomic nuclei together. I speak of the immense psychic energy required to hold a false self together. When the entire universe, your dreams, your body, your unconscious is conspiring to crack it open. What is the cost of this maintenance? In Jungian terms, we speak of the cost in the currency of libido, or psychic life force. The persona you present to the world is not just a social mask, it is an energy consumption engine. It devours your vitality to suppress the truths, impulses, and potentials that do not fit the curated narrative. Jungian psychology teaches that the psyche possesses a profound compensatory mechanism. Whenever you lean too heavily into a one-sided conscious adaptation, like being ruthlessly logical and repressing all emotion, or being excessively kind and repressing all assertiveness, the psyche generates a counterposition in the unconscious. This is the birth of the shadow. For the person living in the false sanctuary, the shadow is not just a collection of evil traits. It is the repository of everything the persona refuses to acknowledge. The more rigid your fortress, the larger and more volatile the shadow becomes. You cannot suppress rage without also suppressing passion and the capacity for righteous indignation. You cannot numb grief without numbing joy and the capacity for deep intimacy. You cannot lock away your weird, spontaneous, chaotic, wild impulses without locking away the creative genius that fuels a life of meaning and contribution. The first sign that the false sanctuary is failing is usually chronic, unrelenting burnout. This is not the tiredness that a good night's sleep or a weekend retreat can fix. This is existential fatigue. It is the soul screaming through the body, I am exhausted by the performance. Imagine holding a beach ball underwater in a swimming pool. You can do it. You can hold it perfectly still, and from the surface, the water looks calm, glassy, and controlled. Nobody watching sees the effort, but you feel it. Your arms are shaking. Your muscles are cramping. Your entire being is focused on this one act of suppression. That's the cost of holding down the shadow. Now, if you live like this for decades, suppressing your true opinions to keep the peace, suppressing your creativity to pay the mortgage, suppressing your needs to be the low-maintenance partner the arms eventually give out. And when they do, the beach ball you repressed, accumulated, pressurized identity doesn't just float gently to the surface, it explodes from the water like a missile. This manifests as the stereotypical midlife crisis, a sudden emotional breakdown, an affair that torches a stable marriage, or a catastrophic, seemingly irrational upending of a life that looked perfect from the outside. Another symptom is the presence of a silent, profound emptiness that no external achievement can fill. You have built the perfect sanctuary. You have the title, the partner, the lifestyle, the physique that the algorithm and your family programmed you to pursue. Yet, you wake up before dawn with a hollow ache in your chest, a sense that you are missing your own life. Jung described this as the general neurosis of our age. It is the starvation of the spirit. The persona is overfed, obese on external validation. It has consumed all your efforts and attention. But the self, the totality of your being, the blueprint of who you are meant to become, is being starved to death in the basement of the psyche. The soul is not fed by public validation. It is fed by congruence. It is fed by the alignment between your inner truth and your outer action. If you walk around presenting an identity that is 60% fabricated to fit in, to be liked, to avoid conflict, You are only allowing 40% of your soul to breathe. The other 60% is dissociating, watching you from a distance, waiting for the performance to finally end so real life can begin. Consider the specific terror of social abandonment. This is the most powerful and vigilant guard in the prison of the false sanctuary. In our deep evolutionary history, being cast out of the tribe meant certain, imminent death. The human brain has an ancient script that equates social rejection with annihilation. The ego knows this script by heart. If your authentic desire is to leave the corporate law path and become a painter, the false sanctuary blares a siren so loud it drowns out all reason. You will be poor and die alone. The tribe will laugh at you. This is a primitive, reptilian fear hijacking a complex adult decision. The pain of staying in the known cage is intellectual, distant, a slow burn, but the fear of being cast into the unknown wilderness of your authentic path is visceral, immediate, and paralyzing. You are not a prisoner of your circumstances. You are a prisoner of the projected fear that the world will not accept you if you drop the act. So you keep acting, paying the price in years of unlived life, in chronic health conditions born of stress, and in the slow, quiet dying of the light behind your eyes. Part 4. Initiating the conscious dissolution. We stand now at the threshold of the most sacred and terrifying process in Jungian psychology, the dissolution. We are not going to fix you. Fixing implies that the structure is sound and just needs repair. We are going to unmake you. To rescue the soul from the calcified shell, we must enter a phase of conscious demolition. This is not a rebranding. This is not an upgrade. This is a death and a rebirth. The Greeks called it katabasis, the descent into the underworld. The alchemists, whom Jung studied so deeply, called it the nigredo, the blackening, the stage of putrefaction where the old matter must rot before the gold can emerge. This is the void where the old structure is reduced to rubble, and for a time, you are utterly homeless inside your own life. The first act of this phase is what I call radical unknowing. You must begin a process of unlearning everything the persona has used as scaffolding. You must become deeply, profoundly suspicious of every automatic sentence that begins with I am. If you say, I am a punctual person, stop, interrogate it. Is this a soul-felt value I choose consciously, or was this a survival adaptation to a chaotic childhood, where lateness was met with rage or punishment? If you say, I am an anxious person, stop. Is this a permanent, unchangeable trait? Or has my nervous system memorized a pattern of hypervigilance that I am afraid to let go of because anxiety feels like safety, because anxiety feels like being prepared? If you say, I'm not the kind of person who takes risks, ask, who told you that? Whose voice is that? And what event made you decide that risk was fatal? Unlearning is not about suddenly pretending you are a blank slate. It is about withdrawing the projection of fate from your habits. You start to see that much of your so-called personality is just a museum of reactions to past wounds, a collection of relics from a war that ended long ago. When you begin pulling away these bricks, you will hit a void. This is the most dangerous and most sacred phase. I call it sitting in the dust. The old self is gone. The new self is not yet born. You are nobody. You have no label, no script, no predictable pattern. In a culture obsessed with branding, self-optimization, and certainty, being nobody feels like a clinical depression. The temptation to flee back into the wreckage or grab for a new, hastily constructed identity will be overwhelming. You will be tempted to rush. You will grab for a new label, a new spiritual identity as the enlightened one, a new relationship status that mimics the old pattern, a new extreme political stance that provides a ready-made tribe anything to escape the horrifying suspension of the void. Do not rush. The soul cannot be born in a contraction. It needs the spaciousness of the void to breathe. Jung described this as the night sea journey, a passage through utter darkness where the ego loses its familiar light source and must learn to navigate by the faint, distant stars of the self, not the glaring neon streetlights of society. In this void, we encounter the shadow in its rawest, most unvarnished form. And here lies the key to Jungian philosophy that everyone misses. The shadow does not just contain your darkness, your vices, and your primal instincts. It contains your trapped light. The traits you suppress to build the false sanctuary are not just your capacity for cruelty. That selfish part of you you've been disowning, it might be your unexpressed, healthy ability to set boundaries. That arrogant part you've been hiding, that might be your imprisoned authentic confidence that knows your worth without needing external validation. The dissolution of the persona is also the liberation of the golden shadow, those positive, life-giving qualities you exiled because they threatened the family system, upset the social hierarchy, or made the insecure people around you uncomfortable. When you are sitting in the dust, sifting through the rubble of your false sanctuary, you are not just looking for broken glass and sharp edges. You are searching for the diamonds you buried there to keep them safe from the world. Let me offer a biological and deeply Jungian mental framework for this transition. Think of the metamorphosis of a caterpillar into a butterfly. We romanticize the emergence of the winged creature from the chrysalis, but the internal process is not beautiful. It is messy and complete. Inside that shell, the caterpillar does not just sprout wings. It dissolves into an organic, nutrient-rich soup. It literally breaks down into what biologists call imaginal cells. If you opened the chrysalis at the wrong time, you would not find a half-formed butterfly. You would find goo. That is the phase you are entering. You are the goo. The imaginal cells are the new potential, the new life, the new way of being, fighting against the old immune system of the ego that perceives this new potential as a threat. Your only job during this phase is to protect the chrysalis, to sit in the darkness, to tolerate the formlessness, and to resist the terrible temptation to glue the old caterpillar skin back onto your body just to feel solid again. Part 5. The path toward Jungian individuation. Where does this dissolution lead? Carl Jung did not stop at the destruction of the self. He was not a prophet of nihilism. He pointed toward the ultimate destination of psychological and spiritual development, individuation. But this is a word that has been deeply, profoundly misunderstood. Individuation is not about becoming a unique snowflake, superior to others, or isolated in your specialness. Nor is it about becoming a flawless, perfected, transcendent being who has risen above all human frailty. Individuation is the conscious, lifelong integration of the whole, undivided psyche. It is the end of the civil war within. It is the moment when the conscious mind and the unconscious shadow stop fighting and begin a dialogue that creates a third, transcendent thing: the self. Living outside the false sanctuary feels radically different from living inside it. In the sanctuary, identity was a noun, a solid, unmovable, easily defined object. After individuation, identity becomes a verb. It is a flowing river that carves new channels and adapts to the landscape, not a frozen sculpture that shatters if struck. You can hold the paradoxes that the old persona could not tolerate. You can be generous and fiercely ferocious. You can be disciplined and wildly, childishly spontaneous. You are no longer terrified when someone perceives you in a way that contradicts your brand. Because you are no longer a single fragile story, you are the entire vast library. This flexibility is the true sign of spiritual liberation. When you are not defending a rigid persona, you stop taking offense. An attack on your reputation is just a stone thrown into a living river. It sinks, and the water closes over it, moving on. But when your reputation, your statue, is the only thing holding you up, a stone thrown at a frozen sculpture can shatter it completely. The shadow work in this phase shifts from excavation to dialogue. You stop treating the shadow like a monster to be subdued and start treating it like a disowned sibling to be brought to the family table. You learn to sit at the round table of your psyche and converse with the different archetypes that Jung mapped. The innocent child, the warrior, the lover, the sovereign king or queen, the mystic, the trickster. In the false sanctuary, only one of these was allowed to exist, and it was on duty 24/7. In the individuated life, the psyche is a symphonic orchestra with many instruments. Sometimes the drums of the warrior need to play. Sometimes the violins of the lover. Sometimes the silence of the mystic is all that is required. The ego is no longer the dictator of the state, issuing rigid decrees and punishing dissent. It becomes the good steward, the wise administrator of the self's energy, making choices based on wholeness rather than fear. You realize that the goal is not to be perpetually happy, that is another golden prison of forced positivity, but to be fully alive. To have the capacity to hold the immense grief of the world without shattering, and to simultaneously access the ecstasy of existence without guilt or self-sabotage. This commitment to perpetual shedding is the final and most crucial lesson. Do not turn the insights of individuation into a new false sanctuary. Do not build a shiny new identity around being the awakened one, the healed one, or the one who has done the work. Spiritual materialism, using spiritual concepts to inflate a new and more subtle ego, is the psyche's most brilliant disguise. The moment you say, "I have arrived, I am done," you have built a new cage, often more gilded and more difficult to escape than the last. The authentic life is a constant dance of dying and becoming, as the great poet Rilke wrote, in a line Jung was undoubtedly in deep resonance with. "Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final." If no feeling is final, then no identity is final either. You must become a gentle traitor to your past selves, out of a fierce loyalty to the wholeness of the self. We end where we began, but with a completely different lens. The false sanctuary was not a mistake. It was a brilliant coping mechanism created by a resourceful, adapting child who did what they had to do to survive an impossible psychological environment. Do not hate the fortress. Do not berate yourself for building it. Thank the architecture. Acknowledge the cunning, survival-oriented genius of the ego. Visit the rooms one last time. Then, respectfully, and with full consciousness, walk out of the gate. The prison was designed to keep out the invaders, but it has long since locked you away from the vast, terrifying, and utterly magnificent wilderness of your own unlived life. The soul does not want safety. The soul wants the frontier. It wants the raw danger of the unknown relationship, the heart-pounding risk of the creative project that might fail publicly, the exquisite vulnerability of showing a face to the world that has never been socially validated. It wants to live, not just exist. It wants to burn, not just smolder. When you dismantle the gilded cage, you do not lose yourself. You recover the sprawling, contradictory, radiant infinity that was there before the world told you that you had to be a single, manageable, digestible entity. Stop being a noun. Stop being a static statue. Start being the wilderness. Start being the verb. The door is open. The sky